In a quiet park in Miami, when a homeless man hesitantly approached Melania Trump to ask for a single dollar, no one could have predicted that moment would spark an extraordinary story. What began as a simple act of generosity quickly unfolded into a tale of transformation and the far-reaching impact of kindness. What seemed like an ordinary encounter soon became the center of a social media storm, igniting debates about compassion and skepticism. Can a single act of kindness truly change the course of someone's life? The evening breeze in downtown Miami carried a chill from the coastline. The sounds of traffic, ice cream vendors calling out, and children laughing while playing ball echoed through the streets. Yet Nathan, sitting quietly in a corner of Bayfront Park, seemed to be forgotten by the world. In the secluded corner of Bayfront Park, where the streetlights cast shadows through dense tree branches, a man sat silently on a wooden bench, his head bowed low, and his unkempt hair hiding his face. His old, faded coat bore witness to years of hardship. His sneakers, once a source of pride, were now tattered pieces of fabric patched together with rubber bands, as if clinging desperately to the remnants of his past. His name was Nathan, but few cared to know that. Nathan was accustomed to people passing by as if he were merely part of the dull backdrop of the park. He had been living on the streets for nearly 4 years. Once, Nathan had been a skilled machine repairman, the pride of the small workshop where he worked. But a horrific accident had taken his right hand, along with his livelihood. He lost his job, his insurance, and eventually, his small home, the place he and his wife had once called their haven, where they had dreamed of a complete future together. Holidays were no longer joyful but haunting for Nathan. He remembered the laughter in their small kitchen, his son looking up at him, arms outstretched to be held, and his wife's radiant eyes as she placed steaming hot barbecue dishes on the table. Those memories were now ghosts returning each nightfall. Tonight, however, those memories were overshadowed by the gnawing hunger in his stomach. The paper cup in front of him, with a few loose coins jingling inside, seemed to mock his helplessness. It barely amounted to half a sandwich, but Nathan still held on to the hope that someone would notice him, even if just briefly. Nathan lifted his head, his gaze scanning the unfamiliar faces hurrying past. He had grown used to indifferent glances or outright avoidance, as though he were invisible. His eyes stopped on a tall woman in a long cream-colored coat, walking across the paved pathway. Her oversized sunglasses obscured much of her face, but her elegant demeanor and deliberate stride made it hard for Nathan to look away. Her movements were purposeful yet calm, as though she were savoring the evening's tranquility. Nathan hesitated, debating whether to call out. "Ma'am, could you spare $1?" he croaked, his voice raspy from days of not speaking. The woman stopped abruptly, her shoes making a soft sound on the pavement. She tilted her head, as if deliberating. In that moment, Nathan felt utterly foolish. But then she turned around. The world seemed to slow. Pedestrians passed her by, some glancing back curiously. A nearby couple whispered to each other as they recognized the woman standing before Nathan Melania Trump. Nathan stared at her, his heart pounding. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice soft yet clear. "Nathan, just Nathan," he stammered, struggling to suppress a cough. She took a step closer, allowing the streetlight to illuminate her face. She removed her sunglasses, her gaze fixed firmly on him, making him feel as though she truly saw him, not just a shadow on a wooden bench. "Nathan," she repeated, as though weighing the name. She reached into her coat pocket, and for a moment, Nathan dared not breathe. A crisp bill appeared in her hand. As Nathan extended his hand, she held the bill back and asked, her voice calm yet meaningful, "If I give you this, will you tell me your story?" Nathan hesitated, his eyes betraying a mix of skepticism and hope. For the first time in years of wandering, someone wanted to hear his story, not to judge, but to listen. In that moment, the cold, indifferent world around him felt a little closer, a little warmer. And for the first time in years, he wanted to share his story. No one had ever asked before. Most people tossed coins his way and hurried off, treating kindness like a rushed transaction. But here was this woman, standing patiently, her gaze gentle yet resolute. Nathan faltered, his pride wrestling with the desperation choking him. "It's not much of a story," he muttered, eyes downcast. "Just a string of bad luck." The woman smiled faintly, her expression unwavering. "Let me be the judge of that," she said, her tone warm but insistent. The words began to spill out. Nathan spoke of the accident that claimed his right hand, the mounting medical bills, the loss of his job, and the shattering of his family when his wife left with their son, whom he hadn't seen since. He recounted the cold nights in shelters, clutching his few possessions to keep them from being stolen, and the mornings waking in exhaustion, wondering if he had the strength to go on. The woman listened intently, her gaze never wavering. Around them, pedestrians slowed, curious about the scene unfolding. When Nathan finished, she didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked down at the dollar bill in her hand, then back at him. "Nathan, you deserve more than this," she finally said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. She reached into her handbag, and when she pulled out a checkbook, Nathan's breath caught. Nathan stared at the check in her hand, his mind spinning. He couldn't tell which overwhelmed him more, the hunger tightening his stomach, or the astonishment at this act of kindness. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice trembling, his eyes unable to look away from her hands. The woman looked directly at him, her gaze calm yet slightly softer. "I want to help you get your life back," she said, her tone straightforward, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She began writing something on the check, her pen moving slowly but decisively. Nathan hesitated, doubt creeping into his mind. He had heard too many empty promises, seen strangers claiming to help only to disappear without a trace. "Why me?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. "You don't even know me." She paused, the pen hovering over the check. "I don't need to know you to see that you've been through hardships," she said, her eyes filled with empathy. "Sometimes life is about doing what you can for someone when you can. No questions asked, no conditions." Her words hit Nathan like a wave. She tore a check from the book and handed it to him. The figure, $10,000, left him breathless. Nathan gasped, his hands trembling. This can't be real," he stammered, his voice shaking. "It's real," she said firmly. "But this isn't charity, Nathan. It's an opportunity. I'll connect you with an organization that can help you find housing and a job. The rest is up to you." Nathan's hands shook as he took the check, his vision blurring at the edges with tears he hadn't shed in years. But just as a flicker of hope began to ignite in his heart, a voice from behind cut through the moment. From the crowd, a voice interrupted. "Before I continue with what happened next from the crowd, let us know in the comments below where you're watching from, city or country. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because tomorrow we'll bring you another inspiring story made just for you." "Hey, is this some kind of publicity stunt?" Nathan flinched as he realized a crowd had gathered, some holding up phones to record. A man in a leather jacket stepped forward, his voice laced with skepticism. "Melania Trump handing out checks to the homeless. Sounds a bit too good to be true." Murmurs rippled through the park. Melania turned, her sharp gaze locking onto the man. "If you think helping someone is a stunt, maybe you should ask yourself why," she said, her voice calm but cutting with authority. Nathan felt the weight of the crowd stares pressing down on him. His grip on the check tightened, his heart pounding with both fear and a deep desire not to let this moment of hope be taken away. "I don't want trouble," Nathan mumbled, his eyes dropping to the ground, his voice trembling. "If this is going to cause a scene, I don't." Melania interrupted him, her tone firm and unwavering as her eyes stayed locked on Nathan. "Don't let anyone steal this moment from you," she said, her voice both strong and gentle. "They don't know your story, Nathan." The man in the leather jacket laughed mockingly, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Yeah, right? Like you actually care about his story. This is all just for show." Melania's gaze didn't waver as she took a step closer to him. Her chin lifted, her calm face illuminated by the streetlight. If helping someone gives people something to talk about, then let them talk, she replied, her voice steady but imbued with quiet power. But tell me, what have you done for anyone today? The man's face froze for a moment before he muttered something under his breath and melted back into the crowd. As people began to disperse, a few lingered, their phones still pointed at Nathan and Melania. Nathan stood frozen, gripping the check so tightly it crinkled slightly in his hand. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the park's ambient noise. Melania looked at him, her eyes soft yet filled with understanding. "Because no one should feel ashamed for receiving kindness," she said, a faint, gentle smile gracing her lips. Nathan bowed his head, his eyes fixed on his worn, tattered shoes. But inside he felt a strange, unfamiliar sensation as though his story wasn't over yet. He sat down on the curb, his gaze locked on the check, as if afraid it might disappear. Around him, the city of Miami pulsed on car horns blaring, children's laughter echoing in the distance. It seemed like no one else noticed him. Melania stood nearby, her calm presence radiating quiet strength. "What do I do now?" Nathan said aloud, his voice trembling, caught between fragile hope and the fear of the unknown. "Start over," she said, her eyes steady on him. "But you won't have to do it alone." She pulled out her phone, tapped a few buttons, and then held it out for Nathan to see. "This is Elena. She'll help you find housing and a job. I'll cover the costs to help you get back on your feet." Nathan stared at her, his face a mix of confusion and disbelief. This all felt too good to be true. "Why are you doing all this for a stranger?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Melania paused, her gentle eyes meeting his deeply. "Because I know what it feels like to feel powerless," she said, her voice carrying a quiet weight. "And sometimes, one act of kindness can change everything." Nathan looked down at the check, his trembling fingers tracing its edges. A whirlwind of emotions, confusion, gratitude, fear choked him, leaving him unable to speak. As Melania walked away, her figure fading into the distance, Nathan remained seated, overwhelmed by the unexpected future unfolding before him. Yet, as night fell, Nathan couldn't foresee the storm brewing on the horizon. The next morning, Nathan's story spread like wildfire across social media. Some hailed Melania as a symbol of compassion, while others were skeptical, dismissing the act as a publicity stunt. Reporters and media outlets flocked to the park, eager to track down Nathan. "Did Melania Trump really give you $10,000? Do you think she did it just for attention? What are you planning to do with the money?" The barrage of questions and flashing cameras unsettled Nathan. His anxious gaze darted around as he kept his head down, silently pushing through the crowd in search of peace amidst the chaos. Later that afternoon, Nathan met Elena at a small diner on the outskirts of Fort Worth. The diner, with its worn wooden tables and warm yellow light from low-hanging lamps, exuded a cozy charm. The scent of coffee mingled with freshly baked pastries, creating an inviting atmosphere. Elena, a middle-aged woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile, sat across from Nathan. She spoke slowly, explaining the housing and job opportunities she had arranged for him. "You don't need to worry about the rumors," Elena said calmly. "They'll die down soon. Focus on what matters, your next steps." Nathan nodded, though his worry was evident. "I never asked for any of this," he confessed, his voice wavering. "I just wanted $1. Elena smiled kindly. "Sometimes life gives us more than we ask for," she said warmly. "What matters isn't what you ask for, but what you'll do with it." That evening, Nathan sat alone in the small motel room Elena had arranged for him. The dim light from the ceiling bulb cast shadows on the water-stained ceiling, and the rhythmic hum of a ceiling fan filled the stillness. Staring up at the ceiling, Nathan's mind drifted back to his 4 years on the streets, the pain, the loneliness, and the nights he questioned whether he was still a person or just a forgotten shadow. Now, a new door had opened. But as the phone on the bedside table buzzed, Nathan realized his biggest challenge lay ahead. In the days that followed, Nathan's life turned into a whirlwind: job opportunities, donations from touched strangers, and invitations to appear on popular talk shows. People wanted to know how he had survived and how it felt to be helped by Melania Trump. Some called him a symbol of hope, while others dismissed him as merely lucky. The sudden attention overwhelmed Nathan. He began to doubt himself, as every decision and word he spoke was scrutinized by the public. What troubled him most were the conditional offers, public appearances praising Melania, deals to sell his story to the highest bidder, and invitations to become the face of a holiday campaign. Nathan felt these offers distorted everything. The check Melania had given him was enough to rebuild his life, but now everyone seemed to want a piece of it. One afternoon, Nathan met Elena again at the small diner in Fort Worth. Elena was as calm as ever, listening attentively as Nathan poured out his frustrations. Her empathetic eyes never wavered. "What should I do?" Nathan asked, his voice heavy with anxiety. Elena leaned back in her chair, her hands loosely clasped. "I can't decide for you, Nathan," she said, "but remember who you are and what truly matters. Don't let the noise outside steer you off course." Elena's words pierced through the fog clouding Nathan's mind like a beam of light. The next morning, Nathan woke up with a newfound sense of clarity. He declined media invitations and lucrative commercial offers, choosing instead to focus on finding stable work and a place to call home. Nathan didn't want fame or fortune. He wanted a simple life that he could truly call his own. A small room, a job at a mechanical workshop, and peaceful evenings fixing old items that was all Nathan needed to start over. In the early days, after refusing the media and commercial deals, Nathan felt liberated. But as the media frenzy subsided, he realized that true change always came with challenges. With Elena's help, Nathan found a modest apartment on the outskirts of Miami Gardens. It was simple but clean, with large windows overlooking an alley shaded by palm trees. His new job at a mechanical workshop began with nervous days, handling minor tasks like cleaning tools and inspecting machinery. The sounds of the workshop, the drills, the clanking of metal reminded Nathan of his past life. Initially, he felt like a shadow in the background, but his dedication soon caught people's attention. "Nathan, I see you've got experience. Don't hesitate, give it a try," Miguel, one of the workers, encouraged him as Nathan hesitated in front of an engine. In the evenings, Nathan often repaired old items he picked up from nearby junkyards. Under his careful hands, things that seemed beyond repair came back to life. One evening, Elena brought him an old table. "You should sell these pieces. I know a shop in Little Havana that would love them," she suggested. Occasionally, when walking home or stopping for coffee, people still recognized him. "Aren't you the guy from the video with Melania?" someone asked, their eyes lighting up. One afternoon, as Nathan left the workshop, he noticed a familiar figure standing near the gate. It was Melania, dressed in a light blue dress and low-heeled shoes, an unusually modest appearance. Nathan froze in place, stunned. "I came to see how you're doing," she said, offering a warm smile. Nathan hesitated, unsure what to say. "I'm doing well," he finally replied. "Better than before." "I'm glad to hear that," she said. After a moment of silence, she added, "You've done so much with the opportunity you were given. Not everyone manages to do that." Nathan shrugged. "I didn't do it alone." Melania's smile deepened. "No one does it alone, but you chose to move forward. That's what matters." As she turned to leave, Nathan called out, "Why me? Out of all the people you could have helped, why me?" Melania stopped, turning back to look at him. "Because kindness doesn't need a reason." With that, she walked away, leaving Nathan with a renewed sense of purpose. Nathan's life wasn't perfect, but it was truly his own now, with a home, a job he could take pride in, and joy in repairing old items. He began volunteering at the shelter that once gave him refuge, helping others find hope again. Nathan's story stands as a testament to the power of kindness, a reminder that no matter how far someone falls, there's always a chance to rise again. What about you? If you had the chance to change someone's life, would you take it? If this story has touched your heart, we'd love for you to share its message by clicking like and sharing it with your friends. Help us reach our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. It truly means the world to us and will allow us to create more meaningful stories just for you. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.